So I've beat around the bush with this video long enough. I might as well make it. Before I talk about the Hawks, like and subscribe if you want to. I feel a little awkward doing that, but it's YouTube. I might have to do it more often. Anyway, there's rumors that the Hawks want to move the 6th pick. I remember seeing something about there being some pressure from ownership, and definitely from Trae Young, about acquiring players. Should be remembered, once John Collins came back last year, they were way better. But anyway, to me, the most intriguing thing about the Hawks trading their pick is because they have so much cap space, you don't have to match salary. So it is technically legal for the Hawks to trade just the pick for a guy who makes $20 million. Now, whether they would want to put that much money on their salary, I don't know, but it is possible. Now, it's not a given that the Hawks will move the pick. There are some guys they could select, and we can talk about that later on, but for the sake of a trade, the most recent trade reports we saw were from Drew Holiday, and Drew would fit in really well. I mean, he'd give him another ball handler who can allow Trae to move off the ball, and Drew is, of course, very good defensively, and you're going to need as many guys like that as possible around Trae, so that works. But Drew is also 30 years old, which is not too old. We see guys going until 34, 35 and being good, but it's just how confident are you that Drew is really going to fit Collins and Trae Young's timelines like that. There's also a fear that Drew could opt out of his player option. You, of course, don't want that if you're going to trade for him. Well, unless you're confident that you'll re-sign him, of course. Now, one thing I should mention is if the Hawks wanted to save a little bit of money on this move, they could put Dedmon in the deal, because he's their only, I guess, non-essential guy who's under contract for a bit of money. But then another team would have to be comfortable taking on his $13 million next season, which I don't know if that's going to be a thing. Also, would another team want Kevin Huerter or DeAndre Hunter or Cam Reddish? I mean, maybe depending on how good of a player they're sending you for that 6th pick, they might not view the 6th pick as enough. And are the Hawks comfortable with moving one of their young guys other than Trae or Collins? I don't know. Anyway, if you want to think about Gordon Hayward, I should have remembered that the Hawks were so under the cap when I did the Celtics trading up thing, because I mentioned Atlanta a bit in that video. But anyway, if Gordon Hayward was going to end up in Atlanta, I mean, would the Celtics do it? Obviously, they want a Kongwu. It's become pretty obvious. But I just feel like they would want more. And it goes back to what I just said. The Celtics might want Kevin Huerter. Would Atlanta want to give up Kevin Huerter? That could be a non-starter. They could be totally fine with it. I think Kevin Huerter's pretty good. I'd be very excited if he was with the Celtics. But there's reason for Atlanta to not want to do that. And I say Huerter, but it could be DeAndre Hunter. It could be Cam Reddish. I think DeMar DeRozan has been talked about a little bit. Do I love the fit of DeMar in Atlanta? No, not really. Mainly because DeMar's bad defensively. On offense, it could get awkward too, because it's DeMar DeRozan playing with Collins and Capella, and I mean, Collins can shoot threes, but he's not a super floor spacer like that. But defensively, that one really freaks me out. But for the sake of San Antonio, that would be pretty exciting. Now, would the Hawks want the 11th pick? I imagine they would. I don't know how San Antonio would feel about that. I mean, they could say, well, we're already giving you DeRozan and you want our 11th pick? What the hell, man? Would Atlanta view Otto Porter as their win-now guy for the 6th pick? I don't know. I don't know if Otto's done enough. There's probably still some concerns about his health. Could Sacramento be an option here? I mean, we've seen the Buddy Hield stuff, of course. Maybe that relationship is salvageable, maybe it isn't, I don't really know. Harrison Barnes has been one of my favorite trade guys over the past couple years. Whether Harrison Barnes is good enough for the 6th pick, I think that's a different question. Based on everything we've heard about Oladipo, his market is probably a lot worse than a top 10 pick. I don't think the Nets would give up LeVert for the pick. I think they want to get a better player than LeVert if they end up moving him. And there's other random ones. There's Marcus Smart, there's Evan Fournier, there's Kelly Oubre. I don't know if any of those are really a thing. The other one I noticed for a bit is Norman Powell, because the Raptors might need to save money over the next couple seasons if they want to bring back whoever they want to bring back while extending Anunoby and signing a max free agent next offseason. Powell made quite a jump this previous year. At times he was a 20-point scorer. His threes got a lot better. He's still attacking the basket a lot. I think it's a little underrated for a 6th pick move. I don't know if Atlanta would view Powell as valuable enough for the 6th pick, but I don't know. It's something I thought of. And that is about it. Again, if you want to dive into the depths of any move, you could end up having DeAndre Hunter or something changing teams. I imagine Atlanta would not want to move those guys, but if they really had to, and again, it does seem like there's some pressure from the front office and all that, then maybe they would do it. Anyway, if we think about just what if the Hawks didn't move the pick, well, we always think about the ideal player next to Trae Young, and it's a tall guy who can switch across a few positions, stretch the floor, and hopefully you get one guy who can do something off the dribble so it allows Trae to do a little bit more off the ball. I did mention the Hawks when I talked about Denny yesterday. Denny's certainly the playmaker that you would hope for next to Trae Young, and I think he's got the size to be a defender, although I think he's got to gain some weight. His shooting is, of course, a little more of an uncertainty. Tyrese Halliburton, in theory, could be your switchy, ball-handling wing. There's questions about his shot form, although his percentages in college were pretty alright. There's also questions about Halliburton's consistency on defense. Like, his team communication and that stuff is good, but when it comes to closeouts, when it comes to his angles on pick and rolls, when it comes to just simply moving laterally, staying in front of guys, he's not great all the time in that stuff. It seems like Devin Vassell and Isaac Okoro are safer bets defensively. Okoro is stronger. Vassell is a little taller and has a bit higher of a wingspan. Comparing Vassell and Okoro on offense, Vassell's percentages are better. Granted, that video of him on Twitter shooting with the ball super behind his head was pretty frightening. They've both shown something off the dribble so far. Could be something you develop over time. I think Okoro has a little bit more of a tendency to just mix it up around the basket, whether that's drawing contact, going for rebounds, that sort of thing. So if it comes down to one of those two, we would just have to see who Atlanta would like more. Should also be said, because they have so many wing players at this point, drafting another one could create a bit of a logjam. I mean, basically what Atlanta's doing is they're just having as many guys as possible compete for the starting 2 and 3 spots. And I guess we just shouldn't be shocked, especially if they end up picking another guy or if they end up trading for a guy, that somebody might have to get pushed out of the rotation. So yeah, we'll see what they want to do. Should also be said with Atlanta, that big amount of cap space they have, it could also allow them to sign somebody. There's been rumors that they like Bogdan out of Sacramento. We'll see if the Kings want to hold on to him. He's a restricted free agent, I believe. As far as other wings, I mean, there's Joe Harris, there's Marcus Morris, there's Jeremy Grant, there's KCP, there's Jay Crowder, there's Justin Holiday. There's quite a few options if the Hawks want to go that route instead of a trade. It should also be said, I wouldn't be shocked if they made a move in free agency even after making a trade. It just depends on how much they really want to load up on win-now guys. I mean, some teams take the approach of once you've got the guy, and their guy's Trae Young, it's fair to start being a little more reckless in terms of moving picks and not being as concerned with, oh, we got to have our cap space ready for 7 years from now. That's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. So we'll just see. We'll see what they want to do. Hopefully John Collins is not suspended for 25 games next season, and perhaps they could compete in the postseason. Once again, like and subscribe if you want to. If you don't, that's fine. And yeah,